Hello indie game fans, Baldur's Gate, Fallout, Neverwinter Nights, and Planescape Torment. These are some of the most beloved and greatest games of all time, usually rooted in D&D, but gradually becoming their own genre known as the C or Computer RPG. With the release of Baldur's Gate 3, we are seeing more interest in this space, so here are the top 10 best indie games in the genre. We begin with Divinity Original Sin 2, which comes with an asterisk since while Larian is technically independent, it employs hundreds of people, so it certainly falls on that AAA scale. However, to date, this is one of the best modern examples of such a game, with excellent reactive writing, character customization, and even very cleverly done co-op support, where players are free to roam the open world how they see fit, regardless of what the other player is doing. It's worth a mention, and I want to thank them for carrying the torch into the modern era, but it's number 10 just because they are not that indie. Another excellent title is Wasteland 2, following in the footsteps of Fallout and actually having the same producer but at another studio. This was kickstarted in 2012 when there was a distinct lack of such games being made, raising over 3 times its crowdfunding goal and really showing that people do have an appetite for this type of game despite bigger studios not making them. This game still holds up despite the more recently released Wasteland 3 being available, and the success of this studio was so much so that Xbox acquired them, hence the asterisk as well. Alright, moving on to the truly indie titles, Encased, a sci-fi post-apocalyptic RPG, is another traditional Fallout-like, but this time coming to us from a small team in Russia. It has you exploring yet another wasteland once again, but this time with a more explicit turn-based tactics combat system. Since this is relatively modern, releasing in early access in 2019, the visuals are much more pleasant, and it has gone through a number of significant revisions so far. The main reason for its spot on the list is that it is still in early access, so we'll have to wait for the final word. If you're sick of high fantasy or the nuclear wasteland as a setting, then the Age of Decadence may be of interest. This is a low magic post-apocalyptic world which is medieval inspired, so swords and shields, lockpicking, and so on. There's a grid-based, turn-based combat system and plenty of skills and upgrades, and it's a title which I don't see enough people talking about. Back to the post-apocalypse with UnderRail, where a cataclysmic event has forced humanity underground, and they now dwell in the UnderRail, a vast underground metro network and the factions that form within it. If you played any Fallout game, you will know that the underground stations and tunnels are usually home to ghouls, so that same kind of logic applies here, and who knows what dwells in the dark. It's basically a modern Fallout game in the setting of the Metro series with all of the dialogue choices, skills, loot, and so on, but as a classic CRPG. and it even released its latest and only DLC in 2019, putting out more content for an already great game. One of the things that I love about developer Spiderweb Software is that they have been around a very long time, being founded in 1994, with the owner, one Jeff Vogel, self-describing as indie development's crazy old uncle in the attic. They have made a number of games over the years, with one prominent example being the Avernum series, with the third entry, Ruined World, being an excellent example of the type of games that they make. They have also made the Avernum series, comprising of 3 games, the second trilogy in the Avernum universe, the one-off Queen's Wish Conqueror, and even the 5-game Geneforge series, all of which are CRPGs. Warms my heart that an indie developer has managed to survive for more than 25 years, back before being indie was cool, with these games certainly worth a visit. One of the best modern iterations in the genre is Tower of Time, an impressive piece of work which becomes even more so when you find out about the size of the team. This is a classic high fantasy party-based turn-based RPG, including real-time with pause combat, and has all the necessary modern features. I'm also very impressed with the massive and complex skill trees for each character and the puzzle-like nature of the combat scenarios. Really reminds me of Neverwinter Nights, so they did nail what they were going for. Another nuclear post-apocalypse from another European developer, Atom RPG is not shy about its inspiration, citing Fallout, Wasteland, and even Baldur's Gate in its description. And my god, they actually managed to pull it off. This is based on the hypothetical scenario where both the Soviet Union and the Western Bloc were destroyed in nuclear war in 1986, and how the survivors live in this brave new world. The character and stat system is what you would expect, with traits like strength, endurance, dexterity, luck, and so on, and skills such as speech, stealth, first aid, and more, so it's a very classic one of these. However, the Soviet Wasteland setting is very neat, different enough from the capital Wasteland that we are used to, and comes highly recommended from me. One of the strangest games that I have come across in the indie space is Kenshi, released in 2018, and looks like it absolutely should not work for a modern game, but somehow it does. This is a free roaming party-based CRPG in an open world sandbox where you are free to do whatever you want. The graphics, coming from a developer named Lo-Fi Games, to be honest, is rather ugly, with jagged edges and muddy textures, but as they say, gameplay is king, and man, what an accomplishment this is. People have stated that this is a gold mine of emergent gameplay, of how the world lives and breathes even without you in it, so when your characters get into an adventure, it feels natural and is just fascinating to experience. "870 square kilometers of world, a base building system, a morality system, factional politics, and a non-standard fantasy world makes this a joy."
What makes a true RPG?
And of course, one of the most impressive games of last year, Disco Elysium takes the #1 spot, since this is a narratively driven RPG that is absolutely fantastic due to the quality of the writing. This has you playing as a detective, investigating a dead body hanging from a tree, with the backdrop of a labour dispute and something more sinister. There is, however, the thought cabinet system, in addition to your usual RPG stats, where you can mull over a thought which will eventually solidify into a personality trait, going on to affect dialogue options. While there is no traditional combat per se, there are conflicts which you can pass with dice rolls, but the most critical part of this is that even on failed checks, the outcomes are certainly entertaining enough. If you have not tried this, I urge you to go in blind and do not save scum, but just see where the game takes you, which will certainly be a trip given the quality of the writing, taking the #1 spot. To see more of the big picture, check out these awesome videos, and I will see you after the jump.
The role-playing adventure of a lifetime.